Oh, hello everyone. This is Shawnee Noctiles, and tonight I want to do a reaction video, or not reaction video really, but more so a personal perspective video, as it were, after I watched uh a friend. I've never met him in person, at least not this lifetime, but I feel that I can call him a friend because he reached deeply to my heart, and a lot of things he said resonated very deeply with me. It did, and a lot of those thoughts that he had, that he shared, were similar to my own. They were, and so just as he shared his gift of perspective, as it were, I feel like it's only fair to share mine in exchange. Just as he has shared his story, I feel like it's only fair to share mine. Yeah. Yeah, I can relate deeply with the journey not always being clear, and at times going through the dark night of the soul, I can. And if you all have seen my videos previously in my channel, I have expressed a lot of that already, and I've been able to heal from a lot of it, fortunately enough. And I think that the important thing to remember is what's in your heart and the love that others have shared with you, and that are still present. And sometimes people forget how to really still interact with the hearts of others, and it doesn't always have to be a text message. Sometimes I believe I myself, personally, I believe I can communicate with others telepathically, without the need to message them at times via text. Um, Now I don't, you know, solely focus on that medium of communication all the time because I know it's good to also text others, to communicate with them as well at times, but at least for certain connections where I've had to learn to communicate with others differently, I've learned to utilize that in a healing way. And so I I recently made a trip to Western Washington, actually, that I spoke about in my previous video. And made the trip for a friend that had made a trip for me to see me long ago here in North Idaho. And I always wanted to find a way to reach out to her, even when things ended between us physically, as it were. And I know she and her partner always wanted to see me at least once, or at least have me visit there at least once, where they originally came from. And so I remembered the good that she shared with me, and the love and the car, and how she made that trip for me, those 350 miles, all the way from uh, Western Washington, from Olympia here to North Idaho. And it was a long trip for her, and it was during winter time actually, and going through those roads myself recently, I noticed and I realized how much she wanted to see me indeed. Yeah, I saw that. And so I decided to make that same journey that she made for me this summer. And even though I didn't stay in the town for too long, because the people there were fairly antisocial here in North Idaho, when you say hello to someone, they'll usually say hello back. But I noticed there quite a few times actually, when I would say hello to people at the park there, they would just look at me and walk away. And I thought that was the strangest thing. I had never really seen people do that before. So I did it several more times, and they just kept walking away from me or didn't acknowledge me. And so I remember going to the falls, and there were 5 to 6 people there, probably in their 50s or 60s. I said hello. They looked at me and they walked away. And so after that kept happening, I just decided to go back to the Airbnb that I had originally rented or was going to stay there for a few days. And I told the person there, her name was Tari, that, I appreciate her, providing an accommodating space for me, as it were. But the town did not ultimately resonate with me as well as the vibe of the people. And so I know I've heard of, in Western Washington, they have what's called the Seattle Freeze, where essentially people tend to be very antisocial to people, that wish to communicate and relate with one another. Some people say that's due to Scandinavian roots or due to the weather, but I don't believe that's completely true. I'm sure there's probably other reasons for that, other than anything to do with ethnicity or anything of that sort. So I remembered coming back home to North Idaho through the desert grasslands and in Washington, and I could feel my friend's spirit hugging me, and I could feel her saying, no, I'm not upset with you, sweetie. Know that I'm glad you made the trip, even though you didn't resonate the best with the people here. No, I'm glad that you made the trip for me and you showed the love that I showed you and that you were willing to return that love and to open your heart to remember the good I shared with you. And that was a very healing moment for me. It was a circle of healing indeed. It was. And it was indeed a circle of healing because this was a person that was my wife in Ireland 700 years ago. And they have a saying that the Irish never forget, and I know, people have questioned me at times for this kind of thinking, even some Irish as well, back on the oil. But my spirit truly does believe this, and and she did as well. Uh, Even though we were born, in the Americas or in the US this lifetime, in a land far away from the oil. But I felt there was a reason why I was born here, why I was meant to be here, and why I was meant to heal from the trauma of the past, from the oil, or the Isles rather, and to really have a new start here and to have a place of refuge and solace and healing, for a time. And I think, that may have been the same for her as well. Yeah. And that's why I try to do what I can to thank the spirits here and the spirits, whether it's the spirits of the land or the first people here, I do what I can to thank them for giving me this time to be here, to heal here in this land. And I know recently the Irish back on the oil, they recently gave back to the or rather to I believe, the Navajo and Hopi people. And when they asked, why did you help us? The Irish back on the oil said, you helped us when no one else did. And that was during the Irish potato famine, and that was long after my lifetime in Ireland. The 1300s and the 1850s, I believe, is a very long distance in time. But I can still relate to that to an extent because even in the 1300s, I remember there were probably times that or at least I, starved during certain points, you know, on my time in the Isle. And when I did get food, or when I did get a drink or water or mead, I was just happy to have that and to live another day, to see another day. And I think that I'm grateful, as John would say, as he has said, he is grateful and he has had a privilege to grow old, or to grow wise and old. I feel like I have had that same privilege as well, even though it's in a different sense. Most people at times they have called me an old soul, as it were, that even though physically at the moment I'm only 27 years of age, uh, I really believe my soul is centuries or even millennia old, or maybe even more farther back. And I think that having the privilege to live in a time where I'm not attacked or I'm not executed or burned or hanged or chased after by men with spears or swords, for being branded as a heretic. I'm glad that I can, live in a time where people are allowed to be more free of themselves, or at least in a land that I can do that in. And I know that even after 700 years, there still has had to be a lot of healing. Things, although they have come a long ways, I still think there is more we can still do, to continue ahead and to continue healing and for there to be more acceptance and tolerance, as John would say, or as he said in the video. Even not too long ago, just a couple of decades ago, seemingly enough, emotion was still, looked down upon, particularly, for men or boys, as he would say. It just still shows how even after that long leap in time, there still had to be there still has had to be that change that has had to happen. And although it hasn't been as fast as I would have liked it to be, as it were, you just continue pressing onward and you just continue pressing ahead. And I think that, the other thing as well is I noticed that, even the term Black Irish, people with dark hair or dark eyebrows or dark beards, I hope there will be a time where that will no longer be necessary to be used as a term, because whether you have dark hair, blonde hair, red hair, brown hair, you're Irish or Celtic just as much as anyone else. And, even the Morrigan, who I see as my spiritual mother, although at times she's seen with red hair, there are times where she's also seen predominantly with dark hair. And I think people tend to forget that. People tend to believe, oh, people with dark hair, they came from the Spanish Armada. And I really think that's a bunch of hogwash. I think that there were people with dark hair in the Isle far longer than that theory, as it were, ever popped up, as it were. And so I think that there are times where I have been, I've had people try to put me down for saying that my beard looked too Middle Eastern, as it were. And I don't think there's anything wrong with uh, the Middle Eastern culture if it was used in a positive context. Like there's nothing wrong with Celtic culture if it's used in a positive context. However, when they use that term, it was unfortunately more so a term of belittlement, which is honestly kind of sad. And I know John in his videos also spoke about how there are some people that have tried to, for example, when they speak about the Celtic god Lu, and I did not know this, but there were, and I'll actually share this because my name is actually Lewis, and it's interesting how Lou and Lewis sound very similar. I sometimes have people call me Lou or Louis, or I prefer to be or Luis, but I prefer to be called Lewis. That's how I prefer it for my name to be called. But anyways, I noticed how he spoke about how some people have tried to use the image of Lou of having blonde hair or blue or green eyes as some kind of white supremacy symbol, which is honestly very sad. And you you'd like to think that people would be more respectful, to the core message of who Lou as in Lou, the Celtic god is. Uh, but unfortunately, people tend to sometimes have to stick up their arse, and you have to speak up. You have to speak up. And it can be tough at times. And again, there's nothing wrong with blonde hair, blue eyes, or green eyes. And I think John tried to really, say that there's nothing wrong with that. Like there's nothing wrong with having red hair, or there's nothing wrong with having brown hair or dark hair. But I think sometimes people tend to try to use those symbols as a sense of superiority over others, which is very sad. Uh, and because for me, I felt like in a past life, I may have been 6 foot, blonde hair, blue or green eyes, but I never associated that as part of my Celtic heart. That is just only one color of who I am. And I think it'd be quite boring if I was born with the same hair color and the same eye color every lifetime. It's like imagine, you wear the same gray shirts or red shirts every day, or for years. I mean, is it's good to change up, after a wee while. Or could you imagine just eating potatoes every day? Or well, probably shouldn't say that. Actually, back then in the 1300s, there was no potatoes at the time in Ireland. There were cabbage. So instead of eating potatoes, we would eat cabbage. That was the alternative, at least from what I remember. But isn't it nice we live in an age where we don't just have to eat just cabbage or just potato? We can eat so much more. We have Indian cuisine or Middle Eastern cuisine or Japanese cuisine or American cuisine or just or Italian or Greek or Japanese, all different kinds of foods and diversity that we can survive on, and rather than just cabbage and potatoes. Yeah, I think that's a much better alternative, as it were. Um, but yeah, no, I think that what happens is people they tend to try to box people in. They try to force their beliefs at times on others, which is a shame. You will only wear this, you will only look like this, you will only eat that, and or else, as Borge would say, Borge Andres Bohansen, a Norse pagan I like to watch. And there's no need for any of that. There's no need to do that because it really is very uh I don't want to say small-minded. I want to say it's very um it's unnecessary, I guess is what I'm trying to say. It's unnecessary to act in that way. And I think that there needs to be a sort of uh embrace of our diversity. Even back then, the Tuatha Dé Danann, not all of them just had blonde hair and blue eyes or green hair, as they would say Lou did. There was also the Morrigan, there was Nuada, there was Dagda, there was Brigid. there was Brass, Cornunos, and there were just so many other gods that looked, or goddesses that looked very different and very unique from one another. And no god or goddess, I believe, is better than the other in the sense that they all have their own message to share. Now, you can say that you connect with one god or goddess more than another, as one would connect with the Dagda, as John would say. I feel like I connect with the Margan and Carnunos. Those are the two that I really do connect with. And I know that Carnunos in particular at times isn't as often spoke about from what I've seen in at least regarding the Tuatha De Danann. But he is mentioned, at least, in Welsh myth, and that's across on the other side of the Isle. And they talk about him in Windsor Forest in Britain. But as well as in parts of France and even in the other Celtic lands, because I think people tend to forget that they tend to think that the Celtic people were only Irish even. I've heard people say that. Like people say, "Oh, I thought when you say you're Celtic, you have a Celtic heart, that you're saying you're Irish." And I'm saying, "No, that's not exactly what I'm trying to say. Because when I say I'm Celtic or I have a Celtic heart, that means it's really the culture that encompasses the tribes of the Celtic people. You know, there were Celtic tribes in Ireland, there were Celtic tribes in Scotland, there were Celtic tribes in Wales, even in England, and the Cornish people, for an example. There were Celtic people in France, there were Celtic people in Spain, there were Celtic people in northern Italy and southern Germany, and there were even Celtic people as far east as Turkey. So to say that Celtic people are only Irish and nothing else, I think is a problem, and even a bit of a misnomer, really. And yes, the Irish are a Celtic tribe, and I believe I was born in Ireland, for a time. But I feel like my Celtic heart was not only uh, solely defined by Ireland, because I've also had Scottish people also say, yes, we are connected. And I may have lived a life in Scotland, uh, but I still had my Celtic heart. Now, it may be expressed a wee bit differently, but it's still Celtic. And so I think that, you know, and maybe this is why, I was born off the Isle this lifetime, off of Eire or Ireland, to really just expand my mind and to expand my horizons and really just see other cultures, like see other ways of going about things or other people. I've learned that very well in the Americas. And I know that sometimes and if John ever decides to watch this video, if it ever, if it's meant to be, he could probably verify this. But I've heard from other Irish people that when Irish Americans go to Ireland, or I've heard this a wee bit with the Scottish as well, uh, that the Irish Americans try to say, yes, I'm Irish. Well, I'm going to try to see how I can break it down because I think I can understand why they would get upset on the Isle for why they would say this. Um, because I was watching a video and I know Laura O'Brien mentioned this in one of her videos, very briefly, but she mentioned it regarding how people have this prejudice towards people from Africa for being considered Irish, or people who either emigrated from Africa to Ireland or who were born in Ireland with African ancestry, as it were. And I remember watching a video of a Irish man who had African ancestry, and he spoke about his struggles living in Ireland. But for the most part, there were people who accepted him, including his loving wife, who came to love him for his heart. And there were people in the comments, you know, It may have been a mixture of people from America as well as even from Ireland, but it seemed like these people may have been from America. I would have to double check though. But nonetheless, it doesn't matter where they're from really. They could be from Timbuktu or from Mars. It really doesn't matter. But anyways, these people or these Irish or whether they're Irish Americans, whatever, they were saying, yo, why is this black man? Why is he considered more Irish than I am when I'm from 50 different Irish tribes? And one of the Irish in the comments, he said, what makes you Irish isn't about birth certificates or blood, it's about who you are. And I'm glad that the Irishman back in the aisle in the comments said that because in my past life I believe that, and see, I don't use Irish brethren or Irish friends. I use Celtic friends because I feel like it's more inclusive. Um, and maybe even some of those Celtic friends may have been of Scandinavian or even Viking ancestry. And I know the Isles has its own history with the Vikings and stuff, and it's not always been pretty, as it were. But nonetheless, I feel like some of those were my friends as well, my Celtic friends. But anyways, I remember my past life, whether we had dark hair, blonde hair, red hair, or brown hair. What mattered, really, that kept us together, even if we may have looked very different, was our Celtic hearts, or the good we could see in one another, despite mistakes made. And that's what I still keep alive in me. And I think that uh, I think sometimes I don't know if it was Laura or John or someone else, but I remember someone talking about someone was fighting over there's not enough Irishness in the world or some nonsense. I really it really just baffles me. Just what some of these buffoons just try to really push. But something about I laugh because it's really silly and it's really it's because sometimes when you listen to something and it's so silly that it's like you can't take it seriously. You just can't help but laugh. I know John was talking about the Dagda regarding how and I'll see if I can channel this message properly, but he was saying how the Dagda has tried to help him teach himself and others of other than just the emotion of anger as he was speaking about it in his video. Also celebrating the emotions of weeping healthily as well as laughing and just messages of joy. He spoke about that. That the Dagda shared with him. And so sometimes we just have to have a wee laugh. It's like, these people, they try to get under your skin and you just have to laugh at it at times when you just really think how silly some of this nonsense is. But anyways, so yeah, I think one of them was speaking about something about fighting over, oh, I'm 20% Irish. Oh no, I'm 30% Irish. That means I'm more Irish than you. Oh, I'm 80% Irish. Oh, I'm 100%. And it's really nonsense. It's really it's really nonsense. You know, if you want to stick it to these people or these buffoons, as it were, there's actually a person that he did get 100% Irish, and he had jet black hair, jet black eyebrows, a dark beard, dark eyes, and I think his skin was a little bit had a bit of a color to it. But for any of these white supremacists or neo-Nazis or whatever nonsense, uh, you know, you just stick it to them. It's just like what are you gonna say that he's not Irish because he doesn't have a certain hair color or a certain eye color? Yeah. Yeah, no, that's really nonsense. And but you just let these people, yeah, as Borge would say, these people, these people, um, I've had people also here, even in North Idaho, uh, they talk about their objective truth regarding Christianity and stuff, and I tell them, well, you might believe that, but you got to remember 7 other billion people on the earth. We have different beliefs. And because you have Hindus, you have Jews, you have Buddhists, you have Shintos, you have Muslims, you have African and Native American shamans, you have Celtic pagans, you have Norse heathens. You have all different spiritual beliefs. And also, regarding the topic of forgiveness, a pagan or a Celtic heart can forgive. And even if it's not the same way that some of these evangelicals try to push, saying, oh, you can only forgive if it's via the Christian way, or you can only forgive if you read verse this and that, and or from this text or that text. I believe, from my Celtic heart, that I believe it's important to forgive from the heart. And that's why I forgive. It's not because of any religious doctrine or any of that. It's just from my heart. And pagans can do that. Buddhists can do that. I think it's a human trait. I don't think it's really anything to do with any kind of gatekeeping, as it were, because it really is. It's really unnecessary. Um, but anyways, I think that I think John was actually talking about that as well. And well, in a different sense, it wasn't so much about religion as it was more so about emotions, or you have to talk a certain way, or else someone's going to want to pick a fight with you, or just a bunch of other close-minded thinking, unfortunately. And I'm glad that things have seemingly changed for him. I'm very glad because he just kind of feels like a kindred spirit, and you know, I have gone through that to myself, and I just really can connect with him in that way. And I think that love as well, as he would say too. Love is really something. You know, love is really just caring for your fellow person, for the soul. And you can love someone regardless of gender if they have a good soul and you connect with them. If you connect with them through the heart. Or, for example, if they're in the trans community and there was a person who transitioned from male to female or vice versa, you see them for their soul and you see them for the lady in their heart or the man in their heart that they wish to be seen as. And that's at least what I believe. Because if you think about it, we have been man and lady, multiple lifetimes. So our soul is really more so than just what is right in front of you at the moment. Uh, you know, this is just only a body or I'm gonna try to say how to say it. It's like a change of clothes. Like, one lifetime, or let me try to see how I can break this down. So it's like, one day you wear a blue shirt, one day you wear a red shirt, the other day you wear an orange shirt, the other day you wear a green shirt, or you have your hair different one day or the other. And that's just how different lifetimes are. You are more than just that red shirt. You are more than just that green shirt or that blue shirt or any of that. You are really at the core almost like a rainbow of all the colors and really soul that comes out of it. And yeah, and so I think that it's important to listen and to really see beyond just the physical vessel that we are in, to also see the soul. And we can also celebrate, the physical vessel. It is part of us. It is, we can celebrate blue, we can celebrate purple, green, orange. We can celebrate the colors, just as we can celebrate ourselves in our current forms. But it's also important to celebrate the soul and the heart and what's deep down inside, because that's who we really are. At least that's what I believe. Um, and so yeah, I think that we have a mission to really just go to the heart and really, because I think a lot of times people just tend to focus on the outside rather than the inside, than really get to know who this person actually is rather than what he is. And that's what's important. Because I think we are more interconnected than we think if we look at the heart. I really do believe that. Um, so yeah, I just thought it'd be good to share this message, and I'm glad I did, and I'm glad I also took the time to listen to John's video. It was around a little over 40 minutes, but I felt it was good to listen, and I learned a lot. I learned a lot from watching his video. And I hope you guys can, uh, you know, uh, learn a wee bit from what I've shared as well, and see what if it speaks to you. And again, I just think that it really is lovely that the world is more than just Ireland, in the sense that I think when you get so kind of boxed in into one place for such a long time, like I did, I guess, in Donegal back in the 1300s, or I guess I didn't really travel even really 20 to 30 miles outside of, or maybe 50 miles outside of my hometown, other than to Fermanagh. I think that really opening yourself up to different cultures or different ways of going about things, whether it's Scottish or Welsh or even English to an extent, at least the good parts of it. Because fortunately, I've been able to have some healing with the English and really understand that not all of them, are as ill-intentioned as some try to essentially demonize them into. I actually have a couple of English friends that have really good hearts this lifetime. That really do. And I always think to myself, if it wasn't for Winston Churchill and a few good English men and women, all the Isles would have probably fallen into the German rule during World War II to the Nazis. So I think we have to at least thank them for that, even though our relationships with them weren't always the best. Um, Funnily enough, this lifetime I got my DNA test back, and I I also noticed that I'm trying. Oh yeah, his name was Bruce Fumi. He's a Scottish YouTuber. He actually does a channel called Scottish History Tours, and I remember just like he had that reaction. I think he thought, "Oh, I'm gonna get 40% Scottish," and then he got 40% English, and he's like, "That's bollocks." And then he just talked about, "Oh, I'm still gonna vote yes on the referendum." Because even though his mom was Scottish, his grandma was English. In this lifetime, I did get a wee bit of English, and that was the main part of the DNA that I really had to really heal with. And I remember my English friend Laura. She actually just it was at her birthday actually. She's a Leo, by the way, actually, just like John is, and my rising in Mars is actually in Leo, even though I'm a Taurus, the bull. But anyways, or I sometimes like to be called the stag, because I connect with cardinals. But anywho's, so I remember, Laura just told me, it's funny too, not Laura O'Brien, Laura, my English friend. It's funny how they have similar names though. But Laura, she said, just remember to love yourself for who you are. And that really helped me, because I love Laura as a friend. She's a good friend. And just because of what happened in the past, I mean, my ancestors in Ireland weren't perfect either. People like to blame the English a lot of the time for everything that happened, but I think sometimes we have to look at ourselves in the mirror and say, own up to our own mistakes, because people, unfortunately, they even even if, one group of people may have not have been in the right, that doesn't mean we were perfect either. And I think we have to acknowledge that. And I think even the Irish tried to acknowledge that, or the Irish on the Isle tried to acknowledge that with the Native Americans and saying, we're sorry for what we did to your people. When America was expanding. So we have to acknowledge, that we just have just as much healing to do as the English do, or any other group. And so I want to make that very clear because I think, unfortunately, there's still healing that has to be done because I have a friend actually, she's Welsh, but she moved to England. And I remember there were Irish, or they may have been from the IRA, but I remember they came to her town and they started smashing, car windows and mirrors and just, spewing hatred towards, essentially saying, your ancestors caused all this and we still feel this way and this and that and that's why, there has to be a level of healing and a level of learning how to know when that anger, when enough is enough, and when it's unnecessary. Because just because things happened in the past that weren't that pleasant, it doesn't mean you still have to hold on to that anger. I know John spoke about that, and I think that the reason why, in particular, in this lifetime, I was born, for example, with English DNA rather than Irish or maybe even Scottish or Welsh to an extent, was to really heal with that unnecessary anger, really. Because it is unnecessary deep down. Because, we all have made mistakes and we all, we aren't perfect. None of us are. We all have made mistakes. And I think that even though I'm not a Christian myself, I'm a pagan, a Celtic pagan. I think about you know story in the Bible of I did go to Christian school when I was in middle and high school this lifetime. And I know that the Christians and the evangelicals, they always like to talk about their Bible and things like that, and that's fine. And sometimes, I actually find parts of it quite fascinating, just from a looking at it from a mythological perspective, just like how I've studied Irish mythology and really connected with me as well as Norse mythology and Wicca and all kinds of different mythologies. So let's just say, for all intents and purposes, that I see the Bible as its own mythology. That's how I see it. And in their mythology, they spoke about how, there was a story where, in their mythology, where there were, you know, uh, a bunch of people that wanted to stone a woman, at the time for adultery, as it were. And at least at the time it was called that. We live in a different age now, but at the time that's how it was seen. And in the story, it talked about how Jesus, as a man, I just see him as a man, I like anyone else. He said, whoever, I'll say to him and paraphrase it, whoever who has not made a mistake cast the first stone. And so, in that respect, just seeing him as a man or seeing him as a teacher, just like the Dagda or the Morrigan or Carnunos, on an equal playing field. And again, that's why I speak about, because, as John would say, people have tried to make Lu somehow more superior than the other Celtic gods or goddesses because of how he looks. I believe that's unnecessary because I believe if you see them on an equal playing field and you see not only their divinity but also them as a human, I think it really brings things down to earth. And for him as a man, or as his own divinity, as the same as Morrigan or Cernunnos or Dagda, I think that is something we can all learn from. I think that, and that could have been anyone, anyone, it could have been, uh, it could have been a person named Alex who said that. It could have been a person named Nuada, or it could be a person named Eric, or Frank, or it doesn't really matter the name or the form or the shape that the divinity or the person takes shape in. What matters is the core message, is to really understand why why it is important to forgive. Uh, and that's not you know I think it really is a human concept, and I think it's something we all can do from our heart, regardless of what path we walk. Because as I've said before, you can be pagan, you can be Hindu, you can be a Muslim, a Buddhist, even Norse heathen. And I know Borge, he spoke about how, at least for the Norse heathens, they have a mission, according to him, to actually take revenge on people, and how forgiveness, or I want to make sure I'm saying that right, and I'll have to ask him what he really means by that, because I don't want to necessarily assume that his idea of revenge is ill-intentioned. And that's why we have to really have that dialogue, and to really understand, okay, where is Borge coming from as a Norse heathen? And so I think that that's why we have a mission to really talk and learn from each other, even though we may have different ways of going about things. But I think for me, I think that when you forgive others, it doesn't mean that you let people walk all over you. Of course you also learn to stand up for yourself, as it were, and to speak your mind. And maybe that's what Borges was saying. Maybe instead, when he was saying revenge, what he really meant to say is standing up for yourself. Maybe that's what he meant. I'll have to see what he actually means by that. But anyways, I think that standing up for yourself and speaking your mind, that is important. That is important. But it's also important to know, after you've done that, how to really still see the good in people even after mistakes have been made, and to really just try to see the love that they've shared. And I did that with a friend of mine, because even after all the negative things that happened between her and I still saw the love that she shared with me. I still remembered, the time that she, she made a breakfast dinner for me, even though she didn't have to. And that was one of the kindest things anyone has ever done for me. I also remember when she drove all that way to see me. And I also remember the time where she would really send all those loving messages to me, and really just be there for me, really in a loving way, and hug me as I hugged her. And so that's why we have a mission to also, or what I mean, I mean, really, I'll try to see how to say it in a way that can relate. When I say we, I mean if it resonates with you. Again, we all have our own path. So we can be, it can be just me, or it can be other people who decide to, resonate with some of those messages. But yeah, no, I think it's important to really see the good in others and ourselves, and to really just not be consumed, in a negative way by that anger, as John would say. And so that's why, I think, it's a journey, and it's important not to give up. It's important to continue. It's important to know, just because you feel like you're in the depths of the underworld one day, that you won't reach the end of the tunnel or the end of the cave into a new beginning, and you'll see that white light or that rainbow light, outside, beckoning you to a new beginning. And it's important to continue, as I've learned to continue, even after all these centuries later. Because again, I myself, just as John has the privilege of growing older, I myself have my own privilege of growing older. Uh, Not only in my body that I live in, but also in my spirit. And I think, I'm thankful for that, and I'm grateful for that, and I'm appreciative for that, that I can live to see another day. I am. I truly am. But anyways, I think I've spoken long enough. Um, I hope you guys all found this video interesting. If you have any comments you'd like to share, and hopefully they're respectful comments, as Borge would say, hopefully, there's not too many trolls out there. You know, um, as long as they're relatively respectful, I don't mind, you guys commenting and comments below, and hopefully we can get a wee bit of a discussion or, thoughts, if any of you would like to share. But anyways, I hope you all take care. I hope you all have a good rest of the day, afternoon, or evening. And I guess this is bye for now. Slangafol. Bye for now. Trying to practice my Irish a wee bit. I'm thinking about maybe revisiting the Isle next April, and my dad and his wife, have been kind enough to offer to uh, have me come with them. So to revisit the Isle after all these centuries later, I think will be good. So that's what I'm trying to do, to relearn the language, even though I'm not maybe I'm not perfect at it. But I've heard some people say speaking broken Irish is better than speaking clever English. You know, or as some would say, even if you stumble on your words when trying to speak a new language or relearn a language that you're relearning, it's good to at least speak a few words and just try to show respect to the culture there, like they have shown respect to your culture. And so yeah, and that can even be not just language, but even accent. And well, I don't want to say you have to talk in a certain accent. You can speak in what accent you choose to. But yeah, no, I think it's important to just be yourself and just really be your unique self, as John would say. Yeah, be your unique self. Yeah, be unique. Yeah. So, but yeah, anyways, I think this will be I know I said bye for now or Slongful, but now this is really where I will conclude the video, and yeah, I'll conclude the video now. Bye for now, Slongful. Bye for now. Bye for now.